very, very good morning to you, and welcome to this post-budget breakfast that we are here at this morning. And it is great to be here in a room pretty much so full of a lot of people. And, I suppose it looks fuller than it really is, but still all protocol observed with COVID. And you're going to see lots of people walking in front of cameras. That's much I can promise you. That's what happens when you're hosting a budget breakfast with lots of people inside here. And this is, of course, where the Finance Minister is going to be joining us in a couple of minutes' time. In fact, at 8 o'clock exactly, 7 o'clock, I beg your pardon, 7 o'clock exactly, we'll begin that sit-down conversation with the Minister and ask him just a couple of questions about the budget yesterday and perhaps get him to elaborate on one or two of the issues. Now, we have a room, as I mentioned, full of invited guests here and from all walks of life, whether we're talking from the health sector, from education. In fact, I can see a lot of learners that are in the room as well that obviously have come here before they are on their way to school. And we're just going to get understanding from everybody what they feel about the budget, how it's been welcomed by them or not welcomed, and many other issues as well. We also want to invite you to send any questions for the ministers that you may have. So please write to us at Morning Live SABC or at Leanne Manus, and I'll be sure to try and get as many of those questions to the minister as I possibly can. Let's talk taxes, though, and I've got the SARS Commissioner with me now, as Sakina had said, Edward Kieswetter. It's always a pleasure to see you. Welcome. Nice to have you here.
Good morning.
And talk to me. What did you think?
I think generally we were fortunate in that the revenue performance was a lot better than expected, and that created a lot of space for the Minister to continue the trajectory of improving the fiscal integrity of South Africa by stabilizing debt, indicating a downward trend in borrowings, and also to begin signal a shift in the mix of expenditure, because ultimately we have to begin to create production capability, create jobs, and that expands the tax base, which in turn expands tax revenue.
Yeah, and this is the reality, is that we are breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. We are. I don't know if you are, because we're not paying, we're not getting an increase. Some people, in fact, are getting a little bit of an alleviation when it comes to the businesses. They're getting a little bit less. So everybody's looking and thinking, this is actually looking a lot better than I expected to be. But is this a little short-lived moment of ecstasy? Because, we surely are nowhere near out of anything right now.
I think speaking from just the tax revenue perspective, there are a couple of factors that describes the overperformance. Firstly, we know, as is commonly and widely reported, that we've had a better than expected revenue recovery, or rather economic recovery. Specifically, we have seen a good performance, but already declining, but a good performance in the mining sector, particularly platinum and gold. And that has obviously resulted in higher dollar income, better commodity prices that has played in our favor. There's also been some uplift in manufacturing, wholesale and retail. And some of that will obviously be cyclical. But I think my and our job at SARS is about not sitting and waiting for the revenue to come in, but to take specific and very definite actions to collect that revenue. And there we have a lot more reason to be positive, because we have begun to see a turnaround in us beginning to restore the capability and exacting specific actions to ensure that the revenue that is due is in fact collected. So this year to date, we can report against specific actions 144 billion of the performance of SARS is in fact as a function of administrative actions that we have taken.
So, because that has always been a major issue, is that South Africans, in a way, lost confidence in the revenue service. They did. We saw it happening. We saw people just expressing the fact that they are not happy with the way things are running at the revenue service. We saw tax collections going down. We did see this happening. So are you saying that this is the beginning of what you believe is the build-in confidence and a vote of confidence back into the revenue service?
Well, I think we saw the first evidence of that last year already. when we were able to, again, demonstrate an overperformance in revenue collection. And this year we continue to build on that. And I think that brings an endowment factor that will continue to provide a revenue dividend that the Minister can hopefully and encouragingly apply towards improving the fiscal position in South Africa. The lowest cost revenue for South Africa is revenue from taxes. It reduces the borrowing requirements, and clearly the role of SARS in this regard is very, very integral. On the other side of that equation is the quality of that expenditure, because it's the quality of that expenditure that's going to expand the tax base. Because the other concern we have is when jobs are lost and businesses are going to business rescue, as we have seen, then the tax base threatens to reduce. Thankfully this year we also have added another 1.4 million taxpayers to the register through various outreach programs that we conduct.
Yeah. And this is the problem. I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's the fact that, yes, we have got all of this, we've got this money, but we are using it to pay off a lot of debt because South Africa finds itself in a tough situation with regard to paying debt. Now, by paying off the debt, you're not necessarily investing in the infrastructure, investing in creating jobs, creating businesses where people are paying more taxes. And this is where I think the skepticism comes on, is that how do we create jobs? Because that is the $1 million question, more than $1 million question, $1 billion question. We need jobs in this country. People are desperate. They're not necessarily, people don't care about the debt of the South African book and the fiscal this and that and next. Nobody cares about that. They care about a meal on their table every single night. Jobs, when, how? How are we going to create these with this debt?
Well, firstly, paying off debt is not a bad thing because it means that you pay less on debt service costs, less interest to the banks, and therefore you can begin to shift more of the expenditure into investment. So that's not a bad thing. And with 300 billion of all of the revenue going to service debt, it's not a great position to be in. The President made a statement in his sonar that government does not create jobs, the private sector does. But what government does have a responsibility to do is to create the conditions conducive for businesses to invest. But on its own, government also, as the Minister expressed yesterday, has made a significant contribution towards the job creation scheme that government has undertaken last year. We, for example, as an organization, have also begun to say we cannot just employ people with experience. We have to bring in young people, give them internships, give them training. Otherwise, these young people end up on the streets. The other important thing for creating jobs, Leanne, is we cannot continue to keep people dependent on the state through grants. One accepts that right now the situation in South Africa is such that without that they would be destitute. But if we continue to keep them on that, we deny them their dignity. And so we cannot overemphasize the need for businesses to regain confidence, and that's the partnership and the compact between them and business and government. And that confidence must then reflect in them taking some risk to create jobs. This is a case where we act in our collective interest rather than in our narrow self-interest. And creating jobs creates more disposable income, it grows your market. So if you're a retailer, creating jobs is not a bad thing, so why not help create those jobs? If you're a manufacturer, help create the jobs, because ultimately it creates a better society and we all benefit from that. And of course the tax man benefits because the tax base grows and that restores the whole virtuous cycle.
I was going to add that in, because the more jobs, the more people pay tax, the happier and the bigger your smile is.
Exactly.
And that's the reality. So we're going to begin the breakfast in a couple of minutes' time. I thank you for giving us just your preview of everything that you heard yesterday and just working forward. This, of course, is our SARS Commissioner here in South Africa, also in attendance in the breakfast.